Hey, Greg, did you get a chance to watch that Bill Gates doc on Netflix?
I did. I did my homework.
Sweet.
I took a look. Yeah, no, it's interesting because they sort of break it into three parts. And the first one is about, the premise is sort of this author, this journalist in the 90s sort of wrote this piece asking, why do people all over the world, and including largely children, get the sort of fecal-borne diseases that are so common in so much of the world just because of where they're born?
Sure.
And then Bill Gates sees this, and over the course of the next decades, he sort of uses his enormous wealth through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to take a different look at that and say, well, it's not just all these, billion kids don't just get diseases because of where they're born. There's a deeper analysis that needs to be made here. It's because we haven't invented the best toilet.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think so. And it's interesting. He said this also. His lifestyle is very different and kind of intriguing, although it would not work for me.
Wait, like about a kid?
No, Jeffrey Epstein. That's Bill Gates on Jeffrey Epstein. And then
Jeffrey Epstein?
Yeah, he also emailed his colleagues saying the next day after visiting Jeffrey Epstein, a very attractive Swedish woman and her daughter dropped by, and I ended up staying there quite late. So like I said, it's about future toilets.
Oh. Okay. Rusty. Welcome back to Seattle Sucks, a podcast about hating the city we love.
Welcome back, Colin.
Thank you.
Colin's back, everybody.
Colin, have you noticed anything about me and Greg's hair?
I did.
Colin did. It's the first thing Colin said.
You both are very dapper.
We both noticed that we got haircuts because he's such a sweet boy. Have you been taking your zinc?
No, I haven't. And reports of my demise have been greatly underreported. I think I am probably still not well. It was really not cool of John Cena to say that my immune system was compromised to a permanent end. But
well, it's great to be in a tiny 50 square foot space with you, Colin.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I haven't got anyone I know sick, so I think we're all okay.
You've got your color back.
I'm milking it.
You're looking very healthy.
I need
you have
those,
a glow.
I need those compliments. Okay.
Everybody, send your psychic energy towards Colin.
Humor me.
He needs it.
I need it. I need all your vibes.
Yeah, send the vibes.
Colin is
calling
like a prism for psychic energy. He takes it in and splits it into its spectrum and shoots it off in other directions.
I just go to the water tower by my house. I climb up there, and I'm naked, obviously, and then just stand up there. That's where you get the best vibes.
That's right.
I think, didn't you find this, Greg, that, well, I mean, obviously we had Shaun on the show, and Shaun said that he was going to do something very brave and go to the Seattle Police Officers Guild candidate forum.
Yeah, the public safety candidate.
Oh, is that the official name? Was that the official name?
Yeah, and there was, some concern on Twitter about this, that maybe this wasn't the right move, but I heard that maybe when he went there, he comported himself well.
Oh, well, yeah, definitely. Some serious mic drop moment, but Kelsey Hamlin was there, and this is what you found, I think, Greg. She was sort of live tweeting, right?
Yeah.
So it seems like the first bit that we know of, since we weren't there, is that he was asked to define what he meant by abolitionist. And then basically he told them to imagine a world where policing and racism don't exist. If people feel like that's unrealistic, that says more about how they view policing than where I stand.
Boom.
Yeah.
I'm imagining a room full of cops hearing this, and that sounds fucking amazing.
I can't get over it. Yeah.
But surely there wasn't more fire.
Oh, he was just coming out swinging. So he's wearing a Black Lives Matter hoodie.
Hell yeah.
And later, he was asked who he would call if there was a shooter in his neighborhood.
Which is great because it's such a it's such a hammy like
horse shit fucking
bullshit question. It's like again like identifying like such a narrow scope of looking at what he's even trying to talk about.
Totally
trying to trip him up in some dumb shit.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure like every liberal politician, he just fell directly on his face, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And praised the police union.
Something like that. He responded,
We love our cops.
Well, is the shooter the police or someone unknown?
Oh,
got him.
Hot fire. Hot. We're laughing, but that is
Yeah, that fucking owns.
we're just because we're so fucking elated.
Own.
Oh, he
Corncob the whole audience.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Oh my god.
So-
hold on, she describes the reaction in not enough detail, really.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see the video.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that exists yet.
So it's characterized as the crowd hissed and groaned, very like biblical,
Yeah.
and expressed upset anger. I like
Just a crowd full of badges with guns.
Yeah. Just a crowd full of had more than one murderer in there, guaranteed.
Oh yeah.
It was the midsummer collective grieving screams. I think. It's a legitimate question, added Shaun Scott. So that
Yeah.
Man, turn it right around.
Fuck
Went into the
yeah.
fucking viper's lair and just fucking shat all over
Oh
him.
yeah.
That fucking rules. Well, it's worth bringing up. We brought it up on the show and we talked with them. Or he brought it up actually that, a lot of people were kind of against him going to this forum. And his response to us, do you remember what it was? Oh, I'm sorry, I pitched to you. My bad.
I might remember, Brian.
Anyway, his response was, of course, that for his district, for his members, like he needed to go, like actually speak truth to power, go and show that he's willing to stand up to these people that he would, ostensibly be in charge of when elected.
Yeah.
And we thought that was good. I think there were some people on Twitter who I think maybe a little ill-advisedly thought it was bad, but I think the results speak for themselves.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
That's that's a pretty high watermark, I would say, for the campaign. Like that is some serious.
That's some real shit, man.
Yeah.
If he just ran that as an ad over and over again, do you know how many times I'm going to go into District 4 and vote for him now because of that? But yeah, and that's obviously coming hot on the. The police are booing and hissing, but this was hot on the tail of the Amber Geiger conviction, followed by, I'm sure, completely coincidentally, the shooting death of the lone witness in the case. With a very realistic story afterwards of people driving 500 miles from Louisiana
to buy weed,
Dallas to buy marijuana because Louisiana famously has none.
No.
So, yeah, it was a hot week for police violence. Shaun went and he did it.
He really did. Yeah. And then, in that line this weekend, right? Was this yesterday or Saturday? Anyway, this previous weekend there was the that Portland vehicular murder outside of a bar.
Yeah, outside of was it the cider shop or whatever it's called down the cider riot, which is the anarchist bar hangout that Andy and his buddies and the Proud Boys had attacked a year ago, right? And kind of blew up Andy No's spot on Twitter and got him kicked off of his favorite magazine, Quillette, because apparently he became too racist even for them, although Katie, I'm sure, is still friends.
His skull grew too powerful, even for them.
Yeah. And so, a gentleman who has been active with Antifa and stuff like that left the bar that night, walked, into the street, walking across the street, and somebody in a truck fucking ran him over, on purpose, right?
Yeah.
Fucking murdered him.
Yeah.
To which Andy No then celebrated on Twitter with a multi-tweet thread about how the victim of this was no angel. As of yet, we've yet to see Katie Herzog bring anything to print on right-wing violence or Andy No and pretend journalists or anything like that. No retraction about Andy No I've seen.
No, if she says anything, she'll double down.
Yeah. So
like, well, we don't really know. There's violence on both sides.
No one can ever really know what happened. Just the driver and the poor dead kid.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think why it's worthy of mention is that, it's very sad and tragic. Mm-hmm. But B, I mean, the fact of right-wing violence that's directly political in its aim existed before this death, and it's just another reminder that it continues to exist, and that people who are defending these people are defending that violence, whether they choose to say that or not.
For sure.
But, so, cool.
Yeah, some heavy shit. And I mean, more heavy shit came, I believe, on Sunday when KOMO came out swinging again with Tale of Three Cities. That's the title of their latest thing.
Fuck.
Infomercial.
Shit.
What did you call it? Music
clip
video?
Show. It's a fucking clip show is what it is.
Many people have said that Charles Dickens is one of history's finest writers. But not even he had the balls to write about more than two cities. Tell a tale of more than two cities.
Yeah, this is some 7-minute ab shit but in reverse.
It is really like it is a clip show. It's like they spend. So I fucking watched it. Brian, you watched it, right?
I taped my eyelids open.
Yeah.
I got the parts that Bren wasn't screaming at the TV.
Yeah, I mean, it's full of shit, as you would imagine, but it's fucking hilarious because it's really, there's nothing to it. It's fucking 22 minutes long, and half of it is clips from Seattle is Dying with Eric Johnson talking about Seattle is Dying, but like, remember that show we made that made such a big splash? Remember how we said this in it and this guy was in it? And remember what a big impact it made? Yeah, it's bullshit.
Well, I think it's maybe worth bringing up some of the points that they had in there, which is they did point out that, and I actually don't think wrongfully, right, that the city did crack down on homeless people after they put that documentary out. Not something they weren't doing before, but I think they did step up.
That is the real story here of Seattle is Dying, is that it became a rallying point and a node for distributing talking points to a certain aggrieved white homeowner population in this town who, when you are of a powerful class like that, all you got to do is get 20, 30 people organized and people listen to you. Yeah. You have to show up at a couple of things. You have to hold a couple of meetings, and the powerful go, oh, we have to do something. Yeah. That's not what working class politics is like. That's not what poor people's politics is like. Well, you need to organize literally the whole class to overthrow the powerful. No. This really did serve as sort of the minimum. All they had to do was put out this hour-long doc, and it served as a sort of minimum necessary organizing for this sort of exterminationist homeowner element to actually get together and push City Hall toward stepping up in what they call enforcement.
It was the Blue Chew.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I thought that they noticed that maybe they could have had a profound revelation about was that areas where there were encampments that they had featured on Seattle's Dying were swept shortly afterwards. But then they point out, just new encampments showed up elsewhere. So apparently, sweeping and arresting the homeless did not actually solve the issue of homelessness, right?
Yeah, that's not a connection they make.
This is not a revelation that comes to them.
No, listen, the gist is basically He shows this in L.A., right? He has that shot of the freeway underpass that one half is in Culver City, one half is in Los Angeles, and, in the Los Angeles side, it's covered in tents, right? And Culver City, it's clean as a whistle. And the message is, well, where you don't allow this, it doesn't happen. Where you do allow it, it does. Which, Well,
and they say this a lot. I mean, this is the sort of dog whistling that comes in like actual like genocidal shit, right? Which is that they constantly say it's allowed here. They don't allow this, right? There's no like they won't come out and just say human beings to live right here.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, right, he says the problem is a criminal justice system that's broken. So again, I'm not going to tell you guys what to do. I'm just saying that we got these camps. We can put them there.
Right. You've telescoped, you've collapsed down all of our social problems into the one silo of enforcement by the police, by the armed arm of the state, and imprisonment, and eventually, extermination. And it's just so. I mean, what do you get? It's hard to even know where to get angry here, because on the one hand, it's clearly smuggling in. I mean, you could say, well, obviously, like, just outlawing it and forcing and sweeping people away in one place, they're just going to have to go somewhere else. Like, you're obviously not addressing the underlying problem. But then you got to realize they know that. They don't care, that they understand that poor people are going to keep being generated by the society. You just need to get rid of them. That's what this is about.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, some of the imagery was extremely evocative, right? Again, when they were talking about L.A., the one guy, I mean, this literally is like straight to like German propaganda for the 30s. Our KOMO narrator says 10 million people live in L.A. County, and 12 million rats live there too.
Holy shit.
And it's this thing where, he's like, hey, look, we were just talking about disease a second ago, so who knows what I'm talking about, right? But you're reminded of those things where it's just like, a narrator being like, the Jew is devious. The Jew's like, where it's just like a montage of like rats scurrying.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, like, was this Eric again, or is this was someone else?
No, this is
some
sort of the M.
One of Eric's little heroes.
It's the guy he was on the thing. It's like
so for
Mark
on this subject
like
exactly, Colin, you're gonna love this. This is one of the highlights actually. Is for the LA stint. Dr. Drew.
Oh hell yeah,
Dr. Drew Pinsky
who had Ari on,
and he
show by the way.
So he literally he says his sort of opening gambit is talking about the level of disease on Skid Row, which I'm sure is a real problem. He says we have not seen conditions like this for humans since medieval times, period, and that's a fact. And
I'm going to
interesting about that
absolutely
is
not a fact.
It's absolute horseshit. What the fuck are you talking about? Do you mean we haven't seen conditions like this for human beings since medieval times in Los Angeles? I bet that isn't even true. Do you mean among white people? You're getting closer. Also not true. Absolutely not true. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. What is he talking about? He means for Americans? I don't
he's
know.
just a aggrieved rich person.
He's talking about hepatitis,
right.
And and then eventually cholera, and then he speculates about plague.
The plague, that's the big conspiracy theory now with these people.
Yeah. And hey, you know what? Whatever. It's absurd to say that humans have not lived in these conditions. Jesus, they're living in conditions like this all over the fucking world, as we were just talking about in the toilet show.
They need a new toilet. Drew.
Ironically, the last giant bubonic plague outbreak in America was in Seattle in 1908.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, people lived in much worse conditions in this country in the not so distant past. And I mean, the ironic thing about the
and all over the world now and forever.
Well, and the kind of irony about the medieval time thing is that actually in Europe, like to some degree in the medieval period is probably true, like that most people lived in rural communities and stuff like that, that it actually was the urbanization created by enclosure and the sort of origins of capitalism that like created the most hellish conditions to live in, which was like 18th and 19th century Europe. Again, we're actually living because of social movements in better conditions than that. Like, I mean, this is all just an abject fraud. I mean, LA was a much worse place to live 100 years ago. I guarantee it, all the way down the line. A much worse place to live.
Absolute fraud. Just totally off
what's
his
funny is Adam Carolla's like a MAGA chud now, too. So I like that the Loveline duo are just two aggrieved rich fucks now. Like,
basically. So it bears mentioning also, like, the whole premise of this thing, these three cities, right, is Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and then he's like, well, it's not really just those cities, it's also Portland, and the point is the West Coast is being overrun by homeless people, which is just sort of like the laziest sort of obvious base partisanship narrative, you know? It's like the loony liberal left coast is...
This is Christopher Rufo, basically.
Yeah. And it, again, that's another premise that is absolutely bafflingly stupid because obviously everywhere in America has problems of homelessness and poverty and drug addiction.
Well, that's the interesting thing is in the beginning, I guess maybe we haven't even mentioned this yet, but the show, the three cities are Seattle, San Francisco, and LA. And they begin it by saying, there's a homelessness crisis in, Seattle, San Francisco, and LA, but it also exists in Portland, Oregon, Spokane, Washington, and others. It's like, no, every city in America. I mean, we just heard from
Aberdeen.
That Aberdeen has 1 in 16 people are homeless in Aberdeen, right? And actually, also much worse homelessness crisis than in some of these places. But this is
but
everywhere in America,
the West Coast, But really, we know it is everywhere in America.
Yeah, there's a homelessness crisis in San Antonio, Texas.
You might have heard that a handful of people in America are addicted to opiates.
Who has the sexiest homeless people? L.A. It's got to be L.A.
L.A. probably.
Hell yeah. Well, you can see, I think, in the national dialogue that this attack specifically on the West Coast is political. This is Trump's rhetoric.
Yeah.
And again, I think this came out of Christopher Rufo's repeated visits to, was it Tucker Carlson? Anyway, as a Fox News contributor or guest, to paint liberalism in quotes as a breeding ground for this.
What's the weird irony of the sort of having it both ways of American conservatism, which is that the Midwest is a hollowed out, or the flyover states are a hollowed out shell because of Hillary Clinton and NAFTA. Also, the West Coast is overrun with homelessness because of liberals or whatever, and the people in the Midwest are the heart. So they don't have these problems.
Yeah,
and it's this weird thing of it's all contradictory because I think, as Greg has said, frequently, it's like fascism is at its heart just like a contradictory ideology because it's just about venting, anger and hating like people around you, right?
Yeah.
And scapegoating.
Well. And the way they scapegoat here is by, and this is Eric Johnson's whole narrative. He actually says, he talks about what the problem is. He says, it's drugs, it's mental illness. It's like what we said about cops, our criminal justice system not functioning. Says cops, can't do
their job.
But he actually says it's an addiction and mental illness crisis disguised as a housing crisis.
Yeah.
So there's the crux of it right there, because this is simultaneously.
Is my reading a Joker, by the
way. Okay. Simultaneously, right there, you invoke the sacred meritocracy, right? Because embedded in this narrative is that these people, chose addiction, and so when we eventually sweep them away to the ovens, that'll be why. But also, the real issue here is to say all that you've heard about a housing crisis, that's bullshit. Which is to say, all that you've heard about the economy being unequal, people not being able to make it in this economy, that's bullshit. What you've heard about the fact that something like 70% of homeless people in King County have fucking jobs. Forget about that.
Yeah.
What you've heard about, and what you've naturally looked around you if you're not a fucking millionaire on Queen Anne is seen in your own life and yourself that like, oh, it's been really harder and harder. People obviously hanging on for a decade after the last fucking financial crash. It's easy to picture them like ending up homeless. No. That's bullshit. That's some liberal lefty bullshit. The real that those externalities, those things outside of people's control, this larger system of capitalism, forget about that. No. It's just these people are addicts and slightly more sympathetic, are mentally ill.
Yeah. Well, and I think they're subsuming all the problems of the economy under this rubric of these people are deviant and their deviance has to be fixed. And I think the one thing that like really jumped out to me, which is this sort of thing that Safe Seattle and that crowd has been on for like the last couple of weeks, in that they very uncritically repeat on the thing, which is this idea that the Macy's downtown closed because of a rash of because of homeless people and because of shoplifting. And it was so funny because I remember seeing that and I was like, well, that's not why department stores close. And I just went onto Google and I just put Macy's announces closings. And of course, it instantly popped up at their quarterly meeting beginning the year. Macy's announced we're closing over 100 stores nationally. This, of course, being one of the 100 stores because, of course, their profits are down because they're a giant box store and everybody shops at Amazon now. But again, it's the story that's an actual like economic story, about that says something about like how we've organized our economy, the effects of that and all that kind of stuff. And they've completely subsumed it under this rhetoric of deviance versus the diligent, worker bees.
Because look who's actually the bad guy in that. Big surprise. It's fucking Amazon. The bringer of jobs.
It's literally bringer of jobs Amazon and probably Macy's too. It's our economy and how it works.
It's the shell game that Amazon is playing where they gathering investment to put other sectors of the economy out of business. But we can't talk about that. All the people at the bottom, the people hurt the most by this turn in the economy and by capitalism itself, get to be our scapegoats. Yeah, they get to be the sin eaters of this fucking shitty economy and this entire system, because that's very convenient, because as you punish them, you make the punishment something that gets rid of them, which then, hides the problem. And then as more people who can't take care of themselves are generated by this system constantly, you can just keep doing that endlessly.
Yeah. And I think this one, maybe because of how compact it was fascinating, and its ability to just throw out every epithet at the homeless and why you shouldn't give a shit about them. It began with the usual, they're all drug addicted and crazy or whatever. And then it continued to, when we get to LA, we have some weird like ministers trying to run a mega church near Skid Row who complains that it just cuts to him looking out a window at people on the street because it all has this weird voyeuristic quality.
Yeah.
And he's looking out a window and he just is saying to the camera, there's over 1,000 sex offenders out there, right?
What's your point, asshole?
Yeah, you get to Dr. Drew, who basically just says, tuberculosis is exploding. There's plague. People have typhus, right? Like, literally, they're basically throwing everything at the wall about why you should not give a fuck about these people. And, yeah.
Like Jackson Pollock or something.
Yeah.
Just throwing paint on a canvas.
It is interesting that, like you said, they do start talking about like what San Francisco's doing. That part is sort of nonsensical and contradictory. Like, it doesn't really, but it's interesting. At some point, they must realize they have to say something, or the only material they're getting from that county supervisor they're talking to is about like, well, we approve these measures to do all this new stuff. But it's interesting the way they frame it. They say like, well, San Francisco, they got buy-in from big business. And in the same sentence, for a voter-approved funding measure.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, hang on. So it sounds like actually they just had democracy and people passed it and buy-in from big business be damned.
We talked to
well,
Wale
democracy
about that,
has
right?
two equal and important halves. One is the voting public, and the other is the business veto.
Yeah.
And those have to work together.
Well, apparently they did in this case. Whereas, he says, in Seattle, big business was vilified in the head tax fight, and that's why it failed. And through all that, it's classic. They just use the same old footage of that rally.
Yeah.
The you know what
like
rally?
20
The hard
construction
hats,
workers they
and
hired
looking
to
over
fucking,
at
By the way,
like,
if you-
the one moment of where there something resembling like confusion on Shama Swant's face, and
Yeah, and if you're one of those construction workers who showed up and like yelled at it or whatever, and Jeff Bezos didn't immediately cut you a check, you're the biggest, dumbest
fucking
rube on the planet.
Yeah,
you are dumb as dog shit.
True
Like
that.
you honestly are too fucking stupid to live. Like, you're fucking rude.
You are a capitalist running dog stooge. Is what you are.
Like, dogs are smarter because at least they know to run away. Like,
oh, fuck.
absolute fucking moron.
Yeah.
But anyways,
So I mean, we've talked about that's a story of democracy being subverted here. Like, again, this thing that was felt to be broadly popular, that the city council it passed unanimously because they all thought they had buy-in from big business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then
they didn't, right?
Yeah.
And the business
bullshit,
video
man.
came in, right? Well, and of course, KOMO has no comment on their own role in that,
Right.
But
Yeah.
I mean, it is just a fascinatingly awful piece of propaganda. I don't know that a single thing they said in it, other than where the cities are located, necessarily, stands up to any amount of scrutiny. I think there was interesting things you could look at, like the story of the Tenderloin in San Francisco, again, is a story of the absolute failure of neoliberal economics, where gentrification has shoved all the poverty of San Francisco into one 20-block area, right?
Well, that's a success, right?
Yeah.
That's what they want.
Well,
They're
their
like,
literal
great.
complaint
so
at
what
this
if
point
it's
is
there?
like,
It's not anywhere else.
well, their literal complaint at this point is like, well, why, now that they're all in this 20-block area, why can't we firebomb it? Like, which seems to be their complaint. And but in true, I mean, it just cannot go without stating that, in particularly the section on San Francisco, this is fecal obsessed.
Oh my God.
They cannot stop.
Colin, you would love
They
it.
were on the forefront of that,
Like,
if I remember
showing
correctly.
just up close, like hard zooms on shit, speculating about what it tastes like, what it smells like. Which I will say, this is another thing, like kind of like the rats metaphor. Like, there was a deep like fecal obsession in like some of the Nazi ranks, and lots of like shit play and stuff like that. And I don't know what it is about fascism and shit play, but man, we got it in spades. It's fucking unbelievable. But, yeah.
Good Lord. Wow. You two are very brave.
Thank you.
It has, watching that and Seals Die has taken years off my fucking life.
Yeah, Seattle's dying was a real trip through hell.
Well, and this one is thankfully less than 30 minutes long, although if you watch it on YouTube, it's not YouTube commercials that show up, but in the commercial breaks, they actually show fucking commercials that they've edited in, like mattress companies. So like, right after you show that just enormous close up of a giant pile of human shit,
I want that ad buy.
run my ad. It's truly unbelievable, but it's like it's thankfully like only 24 minutes, and me and my girlfriend only had to stop watching it 3 times to get through it. So,
well, it's kind of interesting. I mean, not having watched it, to hear all of this, obviously, but that Sawant story, it feels like they're kind of trying to mimic the narrative now in the D3 election race, which we've heard from other people, not just Egan Orion, like people on the council, that, well, Sawant's politics or ideas are good, but she's just too abrasive.
Yeah.
It's just... She has to say what she means, that Jeff Bezos is actually our enemy, and that's just not cool. She went too far, which is sort of interesting, right?
Yeah. it's sort of weak ultimately.
Oh, it's
sure.
it's extremely weak,
Well,
but that
I
feels
think-
deliberate.
Well, I think what they figured out, because I remember right after the head tax debacle and when it got reversed, and we knew all these seats were coming up. I mean, we even had several city councilors who just refused to even run again.
Yeah.
And the whole narrative was like, this whole council's getting turned over. This is like voting for the head tax was a death sentence. Like, everybody hates it and all this kind of stuff. And it turns out the opposite's true. Actually, like most people were like pretty cool with it and hated what happened, right? I think people were like deeply fucking annoyed and embarrassed by what happened. And the more I think people sat with it, the more they were like, Jeff Bezos literally like overturned a city council vote with a phone call.
Yeah.
And so now, yeah, I mean, they are kind of having to do this like weird dance where like, you know, maybe it's not the idea of the head tax, but I mean, she's so mean.
Yeah, she just had to think of the discourse.
She yells
it's
so
so
much.
funny to
and
think
she's
that
so,
that is-
She controls so much sway.
It's no, but it's
Yeah.
what an out of touch thing. Like America right now, where people are just have been for so long so fucking sick of politicians like beating around the bush
Right.
on everything,
Yeah.
talking out of both sides of their mouth, being just generally full of shit. I mean, actually, it's weak enough to like be that kind of candidate, like Egan O'Ryan, and like everything that the chamber puts out, and it's inspiring enough, and obviously like politically smart enough to be someone who like Shaun Scott, who actually speaks their mind and stands up for what they believe in every instance. But it's fucking hilarious to actually like run a campaign that's like this person just keeps saying like what they believe and just like won't back
and then
down.
acts on it.
Yeah.
It's so crazy that she says what she believes and then acts on it with defined policies that reflect those beliefs.
And then it's like,
and
it's so easy to put together, like, and it's like, sometimes she's the only vote her way on the council and then it's like, well, yeah, there's an election coming up, dude. Like,
yeah.
when everyone else on the council like thinks the opposite of you, you're gonna be out on a limb like that.
Right.
And
Yeah.
she keeps doing it. She keeps going out on that limb, which I don't know how.
Well, in a lot of ways,
people like that shit.
It mirrors the like weird misguided attacks on Bernie Sanders that they've always done of the like, here's a video of him in 1984 saying like American wars in Central America are bad. Can you believe it? And it just makes him more popular. And like they're just like, I don't understand,
It's so deeply out of touch.
Yeah. I mean, I think that wealthy people just have fundamentally different values and beliefs than the majority of people, I think is what we're discovering.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I just, I can't
It really
get enough
is.
of it.
And then, I mean, the other thing, like, to your point, Brian, and both to your point, Greg, like, it feels like this whole project, this KOMO project, is really one of, like, you brought up sin eaters, right? Mm-hmm. That feels like a great metaphor, and it's completely, it is irrational, right? Like, everything about this is just it feels very impulsive and kind of base, and without any real logic. Like, it's just people screaming at a wall.
Yeah, but it has one logic, which is that it serves power.
Sure.
Right. It doesn't have to have any internal logic outside of that.
Well, I think that's what Colin means, though. It's like they aren't even considering, like, should we have an argument? And it's like, no, let's just scream weird things.
Like, talk about cholera, or like the fact that there are sex offenders that are homeless.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Well, it's I think people can see with just a minor scratch on the surface, right, that it is just throwing everything at the wall. And some of it too, like if you're gonna say, hey, we're having plague outbreaks and typhoid outbreaks, I think at some point people are gonna be like, I don't remember that. Like, I feel like I would remember the plague happening. So I think that has an impact.
They might also say, like, well, fuck, we better all have health care then.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds like a public health issue that maybe there should be like swarms of doctors.
Well, they want to do that.
Cops,
remember, Greg, but in a prison.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean the KOMO stuff, I think it kind of reminds me of the post-Trump thing where all the MAGA chuds basically thought they were going to strut, and they're like, look, everybody agrees with us. We're very popular. It's our time to shine. And
Right,
it's
when they
like,
saw
oh
the
no,
view
we actually,
counts.
Was that
when they saw the view counts on YouTube, right?
Oh, by the way, an actual scene, graphic in this is just the YouTube and
It's just like, Seattle is
Facebook
dying.
likes and views.
It like racks
Here
them
are
up.
numbers.
It racks
That's
up
tight.
its own numbers.
That
That's
rocks.
the whole thing is just like
Fucking
you remember
embarrassing.
Seattle's dying. Yeah, it's just Johnson
Fucking
swinging his
embarrassing.
Johnson.
But yeah, I think
And that's it. They saw it is just
Yeah.
like that.
They thought they were
saw
gonna
the
strut.
numbers,
Yeah.
and they're like, and then they did. And
Victory
it's like
lap.
Ari, dude.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
like, oh man, we run this shit now,
Yeah.
and then you realize that those are global. Those
Yeah, yeah.
numbers are like.
Yeah, well, that and like the fact that you got like a big spot on Fox News about
Right.
your documentary, it's like, yeah, probably should be doing about those numbers. None of those people live in Seattle.
Yeah.
And also a bunch of those are the same 7-year-old watching it 100 times, but just trying to get us YouTube to work.
And remember that politician whose career you launched in the Bouncy
Yeah,
House
like-
King? Remember how he ate dog shit in that?
Well, that was
excuse me. I take that back. He ate human shit in that. It got like
Out of a cup
1%.
dangling from a tree.
Oh, I worry so
That
much.
is some strange fruit, Ari.
I was very worried that I got there too late to warn Ari not to eat that shit. But yeah, I mean, the thing is that, yeah, I mean, I think they thought they were going to strut, and that was Ari's campaign. And it turns out, like, oh no, everybody still hates us. Like, like fundamentally misunderstanding the situation in a lot of ways.
Right. So what
I
this
mean-
serves to do, this is just like keeping the fire stoked a little for
Yeah.
this element, you know?
Well, and I honestly think for Seattle, I think the biggest project that actually has traction that's happening right now is SPD's way of overturning the consent decree, right? Like they're going to drum up every panic that they can to essentially allow them to keep pushing the department to the right? And that seems to be like the main function of these poverty panics at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Especially earlier, like the person that really bought this stuff, hook, line, and sinker, was Jenny Durkin. It wasn't the voters. I mean,
Yeah.
sure, a lot of people it resonated with, but those were like weird cave freaks anyway.
Yeah.
But she still ran right and ran hard.
Yeah. Well, Durkin is like one of those like Democrats who became absolutely convinced. What was that old like Twitter joke of like, after Trump got elected, like the Democrats are going to look hard in the mirror and say, I got to get more racist. Like Jay Durkin like is fully that joke. Like, I mean, that's been her interpretation of
Yeah.
events
Yeah.
all the way to today. Right.
Well, and I think it's important to call out what you were just saying just now, Brian, about like this being a tool of SPD, right?
Yeah.
Because in addition to the sort of class austerity politics of this, there is this other element where it's like in a society where your police state has a enormous amount of power, wants to keep it, but there's no actual fucking crime.
yeah.
Like you have to invent some, and kill many birds with one stone by criminalizing poverty.
oh yeah.
And
yeah.
stoking.
Yeah, I
panic
mean,
about that. There's
the
there's
one
no
lesson-
serial killer rampaging out there.
Yeah, the one lesson that we've talked about over and over again, right, is that the police have nothing to do. And this is part of their like justification of their job. And whether KOMO is like conscious of this or not, I think SPD is very conscious of how they're using KOMO.
Oh, yeah.
The people, honestly, the reporters of that seem so fucking stupid. Who knows
Yeah.
what they think?
They are
is
so
happening.
credulous.
I
you
mean,
could tell them anything.
Eric Johnson is essentially just like a TV bimbo.
Oh yeah. They all look dumb as rocks. They're like the little. I mean, they're the Ron Burgundy joke, just real. you know?
Yeah.
But Jesus,
And
What a-
more dated.
yeah.
Beautiful writer, though. Eric, beautiful.
That voice. If I have to listen to
Beautiful.
that saccharine fucking voice, oh god.
It's awful. Don't watch it. We watched it for you. Please do not watch it. It's god awful.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Unless you want to see Dr. Drew. Still hate.
fuck
Wait.
him.
We should
Fuck
talk for
Dr.
just
Drew.
1 second about how fucked it is. A guy who made a significant chunk of his wealth essentially extorting rich people for, like, hey, you want to like lower your jail sentence or not go to jail at all? Come to my like rehab spa where we're going to pamper you and all this kind of shit. going and talking about how we got to get hard on the homeless. You know, there's a lot of addiction out there. We got to get a lot fucking crueler and meaner.
It's the only way. And if you didn't catch that,
just piece of shit.
he had Ari on the show after
Yeah.
Seattle's Dying aired, I believe. Ari got to do some spots, and that was one of them.
On Dr.
He
Drew?
was on Dr. Drew's
What the fuck is it with
on his radio show.
guys who give out sex advice having an opinion on anything else?
Yeah. Sex nerds, by the way, are a menace and should be killed.
Well, on that note, we have 2 new patrons to thank.
Yeah, woohoo!
Yes, BC
Hell yeah.
and Tommy Swenson.
Hell yeah.
Whoa! No way. Awesome.
yeah.
Hey, Tommy, what's up?
Yes, thank you, Tommy. Thank you, BC.
Everybody, check out
Go to the Beacon.
the Beacon.
Hell yeah.
It whips.
Go
Yeah,
to
Beacon's
the
cool as hell.
Beacon.
Tommy and Casey are programming a combination of excellent movies you've never seen that are great on their cinematic merits and cool leftist cinema and documentaries.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Just
Yeah,
good shit.
retroactively, I did not see to the Beacon, but they did show Society, and now that I've seen it,
Oh, you did
Wow.
check it out.
You wish you'd
unbelievable.
stayed,
I should have
huh?
stayed and watched it at the
You
Beacon.
should have, man.
Oh, we told you.
I had to get up at like 4 a.m.
I
the
know.
next day. It was too
know.
late, but damn, I should have watched it there. I mean, after watching that movie, the idea that anybody would show that in a theatrical setting is fucking incredible.
There were only
Yeah,
2
dude,
other
they should get an
people.
award just for showing that
just
movie.
seriously, just for showing it.
Braver than the troops.
Street Fight is going to be at the Beacon.
Oh,
in
hell yeah.
November 9th or 10th, I think.
Hell yeah.
They're going to be doing live commentary on Undercover Boss.
Oh, dude.
So that's the ticket.
Holy shit.
We are all going to be at the Beacon.
Yeah, we better
We
be
will
there.
absolutely be.
He
I don't
said
think
he was going to tell me he's only going to give them to best friends.
Yeah.
so. No, we will be there, and I got my ticket for Street Fight's also doing like a regular show at the same place they were at last time, but I'll be there for that.
Which is a bar, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So go check out the Beacon. It rocks. And say hello to Tommy and Casey if you head
Yeah.
out there. Well, I think that was it. Is that it?
I think
Is
that's
that
it.
everything?
Yeah.
Damn. All right.
Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.